Hi, I'm Antonio Mora. For most of my life, if you had told me that socialism in the United States would surge in popularity, I would have laughed at you. Even as recently as 5 years ago, with Republicans desperately using overwrought hyperbole to accuse President Obama of being a socialist, I still would have laughed at you. I'm not laughing anymore. A Gallup poll has found that more Americans are embracing socialism, an increase over earlier polls by other organizations that had already found a resurgence in socialism's popularity. The survey found that 43% of Americans think socialism would be a good thing for the United States. A slight majority, 51%, believe it would be a bad thing. Still, if you believe the poll, 47% of Americans would vote for a socialist. Times have changed, especially in the last couple of years. Another Gallup poll last year found weaker support for socialism, with 36% of Americans having a positive view of socialism and 58% a negative one. That's almost exactly what their survey found in 2010. In fact, Democrats favored capitalism over socialism as recently as 2016. But now, 57% of Democrats view socialism favorably, while only 47% feel the same way about capitalism. That is a huge political shift from much of the 20th century, where American support for socialism was tepid. In fact, for most of the past few decades, all the people voting for socialist and communist candidates in U.S. presidential elections could fit in a small stadium. Of course, 20th century Americans lived with the constant threat of the Cold War. They understood the horrors brought about by systems that embraced the philosophies of Marx and Engels. They knew about the absence of human rights behind the Iron Curtain and the millions massacred by Mao and Stalin. They also more clearly identified socialism by its classical definition, characterized by centrally planned economies with collective or government ownership of the means of production and distribution. Therein lies the rub. Gallup's research shows that Americans' definition of socialism has changed so much in recent years that it's mostly lost all meaning and doesn't carry the stigma it did in the past. Nearly 1 in 4 now associate the concept with social equality. Only 17% connect it to its true definition. Some of the fuzziness over the concept can be attributed to celebrity politicians, including Bernie Sanders and his self-described democratic socialism, along with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib, both members of the Democratic Socialists of America. That organization has grown significantly since the election of Donald Trump, but still only had 50,000 members last August. The Democratic Socialists of America encompasses a wide variety of leftist philosophies, but it is clear that ending capitalism and instituting socialism are its long-term goals. Not just greater equality, but fully realizing socialism. It has expressed solidarity with Venezuela's socialist dictatorship, boycotted Israel, and even severed relations with the Socialist International because it wasn't socialist enough. So when you hear democratic socialism, be aware that many of its adherents are not just promoting more equality or even a bigger welfare state. They're pushing real socialism, albeit with a democratic veneer. But where exactly has that kind of democratic socialism succeeded? Nowhere. And please don't tell me that it's happened in Scandinavia. Those countries have among the freest economies in the world. They are capitalist economies with higher taxes on individual income and high sales taxes that allow for more expansive welfare benefits. Corporate tax rates, though, are actually lower than in the U.S. A bigger welfare state may be what millennials and members of Gen Z want. A Harris poll found more than 2/3 of them favored universal health care and tuition-free college, clearly hoping for a bigger safety net than what their parents and grandparents had. It would be unfair to not understand where they're coming from. They've grown up with increasing income and wealth inequality in the shadow of the Great Recession, with many years of high unemployment, stagnant wages, high student debt, and a real fear that they will not benefit from the entitlements that retirees enjoy today. Still, it's mystifying to see that according to Harris, 49.6% of them would prefer to live in a socialist country. In fact, according to that survey, 37.2% of all Americans would prefer to live under socialism. Not to be harsh, but why don't they? Well, because when push comes to shove, almost nobody wants to. Who in their right minds would choose to live in Venezuela, Cuba, or North Korea? Sure, those are extreme examples, but history shows that people who lived in socialist countries over the past century voted with their feet and left those countries in huge numbers. few went in the other direction, moving to the Soviet Union, China, or any country behind the Iron Curtain, until those countries embraced capitalism. Of course, knowing world history is not a strength among our younger generations, and education to clear up confusion over what socialism is should be a priority. There are many reasons the U.S. has been the biggest magnet for migrants anywhere in the world ever. Freedom, democracy, and capitalism are chief among them.